tonight for the first webinar for the Sail to Indonesia Rally. So welcome everybody. This will be recorded. Also the notes that you'll see on the screen, I will also turn into a PDF and I will put them on the app for you as well. So you don't have to take notes unless you really want to. Just a few housekeeping things. During the webinar, if you can please have your computers muted. There is a chat function, and if you'd like to say hi on the chat, that will know that we can see what you've got to say. And any questions during the presentation, can you put them there? And then we will answer them all and open up at the end for any questions. So is thumbs up if you're all muted. Yep.
No, I don't know.
I like the thumbs up one.
Bear with me a second.
We're just doing a little technical here.
Is it not coming up?
So we're just making sure that we've got everything working properly. Right, so everybody should have up on the screen, we've got the S2i introduction for today, which is webinar 1. So the purpose of this webinar is to go through what to expect over the next few months as far as what is happening and when things are happening. And as I said earlier on, I will put this whole presentation into a PDF, and there will be a link on the app for you to come back and revisit it again if you wish to, the recording. And we've got quite a few people that have unfortunately cannot join us this evening, so they will be able to come and have a look at it later. Plus you'll have the PDF of all the notes as well. So just a few little bit of general information. For Indonesia, it's the 4th largest population in the world, and as most of you will know, it's predominantly Muslim. There is a percentage of Christian. I think it's around about the 10% of Protestant and Catholic. There's also Hindi, a little bit of Buddhism, and there are also a lot of native religions as well, as you'll find out if you spend more and more time in Indonesia. There are approximately 17,508 islands, many of them very high and volcanic, but there are also some very low-lying atolls. It's also one of the top dive areas in the world, which for the divers in the group, I'm sure you're going to experience some wonderful things. 350 distinct ethnic groups, and we go all the way from the Dayaks, who are on the Kalimantan, island of Kalimantan, who have bones through their noses, to the Balinese, to the Malay influence, and then on the very eastern side of Indonesia, you've got Papua and the Melanesian influence as well. The official language is Bahasa, and the currency, of course, is Indonesian rupiah. Now, they are in big denominations. 100,000 is one of the smaller ones, and they go up into the millions. So 100,000 Indonesian rupiah is approximately $6.50 US, or about $10 Australian. It will fluctuate a little bit, but that tends to be about what it is. And a lot of the time, a lot of the payments on big things will be in US dollars. You can also play with Australian dollars in a lot of areas in Indonesia because of the high tourism. In dry season, of course, is when you're going to be starting out and ending up at the beginning of the wet season. And by the time you get through to cross to Malaysia, it is normally the wet monsoon. So it can be very, very hot and very wet. So that's just a little bit about Indonesia to whet your appetite. There are 3 time zones in Indonesia. So this is just to give you a little bit of an idea. So on the eastern side in the yellow, then you've got the central time zone in the blue and the western time zone in the red. Now, to give you an idea of the difference in time zone, we'll use Brisbane as our base. So if it is 9 a.m. in Brisbane, it will be 6 a.m. in the red zone, 5 a.m. in the blue zone, and 4 a.m. in the yellow zone. So that gives you a little bit about what the difference would be that you can then do your time frames for. So be aware of that as you move through Indonesia. As you go through, there will be a time difference for some of as you go along. Another little idea to give you some idea of some of the distances. So from Brisbane up to the Torres Straits, I know a lot of people that are on the Australian coast are probably in Brisbane, Bundaberg area. You're looking at 1,200 nautical miles to get up the coast to Torres Straits. From Thursday Island, or TI as you'll get used to it being known as, to Indonesia, and I'm talking about coming in on the eastern side into the Kai Islands, is approximately 650 nautical miles. The area through Indonesia that you'll be sailing if you go all the way from the entry point at Tual all the way through to Belitung and on to Malaysia, you're looking at 1,800 nautical miles. And then going up through Malaysia is quite a bit of a breeze because it's only about 500 nautical miles from, I think, Johor Bahru to up into Langkawi, up in that area. You'll also notice on this map, there's a little number 5 there with a red map. That shows a little bit of the way that the early part of the rally goes, which is up through Ambon, Banda Neira, Baru Island, down to a bit of Sulawesi and Wakatobi. So this just gives you a little bit of idea of the distances that you're going to be going. Okay, I've given you 3 rally options, and many of you have indicated exactly which ones you wish to take. So I put them into 3 groups at this stage. Group 1 is the actual scheduled clearance when we have it from 15th to the 20th of July. Those that have opted for the early clearance and Raja Ampat are going to be Group 2. And that clearance at the moment, I have got it down as the 1st to the 3rd, but it could be anywhere from the 1st to the 5th. I'm just waiting for confirmation about when we can do that clearance. We also have Group 3 option, which is those boats that wanted to go from Darwin and Clare and Kupang. And if we have enough of those boats, there'll also be a series of festival events for that as well. Now, you don't have to commit at this stage to any of those groups. Once we do start the documentation process, though, I need to know exactly where you're planning to go and what time. Now, I know a lot of you have told me what you want to do, but we can be very flexible up until we start the documentation process. Now, the documentation process will start in early May, late April. So for the early clearance into Tual, we'll be looking at starting your documentation process in late April, and I will send out your documentation for that. And then for the other groups, we will be starting in early May. Now, there are 5 forms that need to be filled in. And any changes once they have been sent off for processing will incur a charge because they have to then be resubmitted and put through the process again. So if any of you have got crew that you're looking for or will have crew changes, then we need to have a good idea of who the crew are going to be during that time. And even if they don't join you, it is better to have them on your documentation, and we'll go over this a lot closer to the time in the webinar about documentation. As I said, once the documents have been sent for processing, any changes whatsoever means that they have to be redone again and resubmitted, so there will be an extra fee in that case. Now, many of you have sent me through the documents asked for at registration. I'm still waiting for a few, and I know that's because you're not on your boat. Some of you are in different parts of the world. But the sooner I can have that information, the sooner I can put it all together. I make it into one document for you and then add it to the 5 documents that you fill in for me and send it off to go through the process, which will give you your vessel declaration, and that's a very important piece of paper, and we'll talk a bit more about that at the documentation level. So that starts, as I said, it will be late April for Group 2 and early May for Group 1. And we need to have most of that all sent away ready for the vessel declarations to be issued by no later than the 1st of June. So just to give you a heads up on that. At the time that we do the documentation, we'll also go through what the visa process will be. Now, our rally partner, Raymond Lismana, who is also the person who will be with you in Indonesia at many of the different stops, he is your sponsor into Indonesia, and he also handles the visa application. Now, that will start in late May because we cannot start that until you have a vessel declaration, and your other documents have to have gone in first. Now, this year, we are very lucky. We had 2 options of visas. Now, the Indonesians do not make it easy for visas, but they have now got a multi-entry visa, which means for boats that wish to stay in Indonesia for more than, or people that wish to stay in Indonesia for longer than 180 days in total, then you can come back in after 180 days on the same visa. So the first one is this, what used to be called the social visa, which is a B211A, and that's now an e-visa. And that is a single entry visa, and it gives you a total of 180 days, 60 days on arrival. The extension is then done in Bao for you for another 60 days. And if necessary, it can be extended again for another 60 days from there. With the multi-entry visa, it has the same process. On arrival, you get 60 days. Then it is extended for another 60 days, then another 60 days. Then you must leave the country and then come back in on the same visa, and it gives you another 180 days in total with 3 lots of 60 days extensions. It's very complicated, but for some reason it seems to work. I don't have a price yet on the multi-entry visa, but I hope to have that for you soon, and I will put that on the app. Now, if you have crew, and I know a lot of you do have crew that will be joining you, then the visa that they will need will depend on how long they're going to be with you on the boat. So we can talk through those things once you know who your crew are and how long they're going to be with you. Visa applications, as I say, we will cover in webinar 6 with the documentation process. The WhatsApp group, now this is the best form of communication that we have for the people who are running the different events in Indonesia. And also it's a good way to share what you find and how you are all going as you're going up the coast of Australia, as you arrive in Indonesia. And some of you are going to go and explore different areas, so you'll be able to give each other heads up on what you found and share that with the group. So that group will be active from late April. Your WhatsApp is free. Don't have to pay for the service. And once you have registered a number with WhatsApp, you don't need to change it, even if you change phone SIMs. So when you get to Indonesia, there's an opportunity for you to buy a local SIM if that's what you wish. There are also eSIMs for the area, which we'll talk about in communications a little bit later in one of the webinars. But there are lots of options that you can have as well. Be aware that having a SIM in Indonesia and registering your phone in Indonesia can be a little bit frustrating. As I said, in Indonesia, a lot of the events are run by the different regions and different areas. So the way that we try to communicate is to get as much of the information onto WhatsApp. Please be aware, we would love to give you everything as far ahead as possible, but we are dealing with different individual groups who some are organised and some are not quite as organised. So please bear with us. We will get it to you as soon as it is available. Where it is in Indonesia, I will try and make sure that we have an Indonesia English translation so you have an idea of what that is actually about. Now, just a little thing about being respectful of others, especially other people's views. Indonesia is a little bit different. There are things that happen there that some people may not agree with and may have very strong views about. So happy for you to air those views, but please be respectful in the way that you do it. And if you want to have a discussion with other people or have to talk about things that you're not happy about or what is happening that you disagree with someone, can you please do it in a private discussion or maybe just let it go? We did have an issue this year with a couple of people who got very upset about one of the events, and they upset a lot of people because they were not respectful to the actual Indonesians in the area or to some of the others that voiced opinions. So just asking you to take a little breath before you write anything down. The participants list, the rally numbers will be closed off on the 1st of May. And as soon as we close off, I'll be able to have a participants list that will be up to date, and it will be in PDF form, and I will post it where you can download it on the Sail to Indonesia Rally app. Now that will be probably late April, and then any updates I will add and tell you when it's been added and updated. What I would like to include in that is a photo of each of the boats, a photo of a crew photo. So if it's just a couple up or just if there's 4 of you going to be on board for the whole trip, then a photo of you all together would be fantastic, and your WhatsApp number. If you would like to share your email addresses, please feel free to do that, but I'm very conscious of privacy acts and making sure that things only go to the right people. So if you wish for me to share your emails with everybody, I'm happy to do that, but I'm happy also for you to share them with each other. And remember, you can private message each other if it's a small group of you going to be in an area that you're going to cruise together, then that is a good way to keep in communication as well. The wonderful Sail to Indonesia Rally app, this is only the 3rd year we have used it, and it is getting better and better and better, I think. I have managed to make it a little bit more user-friendly, and you should have got a QR code with your registration, which you can then, as it is a website-based app, you can open it in your browser and then download it to your home screen on your phone, on your tablet, and also on the computer. There is no restriction to how many devices you have this on. Now, I've just shown here that at the top, this is what it looks like when you open it up. And along the top on a computer and on a tablet, it has the menu all the way across the top, and the More button has a drop-down part of the rest of the menu, and you can scroll that as well. And if you click on any of those, it will take you to that page. At present, there is no information in the Raja Ampat early clearance group or for the Kapan clearance group. they will be added as soon as I have confirmation of what the different stops are going to be, and that will be added. I try and add as much as possible each week with more information to make it more available. So I would suggest that it would be a good idea to make sure you check the app regularly. So this is what it looks like on the computer and the tablet. On a phone, it looks a little bit like this. Sorry, it's not as clear as it could be, but in the top left-hand corner will be the menu with 3 bars. If you click on that, then it brings you the menu and contents page. And again, you scroll down that, click on what you need to go to, and it will have the information. On the contents page, I've tried to put all the information that is on that page, the headings, in the order that they are to help it make it easy. It's a bit of a struggle for the cruising information for Indonesia because, of course, there's a lot of information there, and the easiest way was to keep it all on one page. Now, one of the things I will do closer to the time when you're going to depart to Indonesia is that many of the pages that are on the app, because it is a website-based app, pages like the cruising in Indonesia information, the events schedule information page, and a few others I will actually put into PDF form, and I will put it on the app and also email it out to you so you have that even if you are offline. And I will update them whenever I can, especially any information to do with the events that go through Indonesia. Now, if there's something I haven't got in there, please send me an email and about what the information is that you wish, and I will add as much as I can. I have also been contacted by a few people that are looking for crew positions or to crew on boats. So one of the new pages will be next week will be crew if you're looking for it, and I've asked anyone that asks me if there's any positions to give me a 1-page brief bio with their details. So if they look like they might be of interest to you, you can contact them. I cannot vouch for how good or whether these people have experience. I'm just putting them there to connect if that's what you wish to happen. Okay, so that's my little bit of a it's not me, they're just there. Okay, and once you're in Indonesia, I'll try to put all the changes and also update that PDFs whenever I can. The webinar schedule, as you say, we're on the first one now. So these are on the Rally app under webinar schedule and get together. So at this stage, we're looking at every couple of weeks. The next one will be on February the 27th. I've tried to keep them on the same day, so it's easier for you. And that will be looking at communications aboard and also predict wind tracking and setting up how we would like you to have it. We'd like everyone to have tracking, makes it easy for search and rescue, safety, and also we can keep an eye on you. And we'll talk about how you can add a blog to your tracking page. For predict wind tracking, all you need is a free account. Sorry, I had a bit of a brain freeze there. To set up predict wind tracking, so you don't necessarily have to have a full subscription to that if you do not wish to, but we will talk about that in a later webinar as well about predict wind. Now, if you can send through any questions, anything in particular about these topics for the different webinars, can you send me through your questions at least 4 days before the webinar, so we can make sure we have all the information that you need and can have it all there for you to talk through. If it comes in the day before, we may not be able to actually give you a full description or actually assist you quite as fully as we'd like to on those topics. So we're looking at communications aboard and predict wind tracking, parts and essentials, especially that we've found in the 10 years that this rally has been running, that participants have found, and a lot of them are the same every year. go through what we recommend that you have on board and how you can make it a lot easier on yourselves with not having to traipse around places to try and find fixtures and fittings that were probably a lot easier to buy in Australia, New Zealand, or even New Caledonia, or wherever you happen to be departing from. Engine issues and fuel issues have been a big problem in the last couple of years, so we'll go through those and other systems that might cause problems and how you can deal with those and mitigate what might be a future problem. So we're trying to make your cruising as easy as possible where you're not fixing things in exotic places like cruising normally is. Another one, Webinar 5, will be looking at weather and some of the challenging anchoring situations that Indonesia will throw at you, and also some of the weather conditions you can expect and where you're going to have to be very vigilant. Webinar 6 will be the documentation process and visa process, and we will go through each of the documents and go through exactly what is required of you and when. We'll have a Q&A session on the 14th of May, and that is all your questions. Hopefully we'll have answered most of them, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of them that you will need answered. Webinar 8 will be tips and tricks for cruising Indonesia and Southeast Asia, because I'm sure many of you will be heading up to Malaysia and to Singapore if you are not heading across the Indian Ocean. Just ways to help you to get around and to take some of the stress that might happen in some areas. And then the departure briefings will be by Zoom, mainly because you will be up in Thursday Island, most of you ready to go, or a few days before that. So for Group 2, for the early clearance, we'll be doing that on the 29th of June. And for the other groups, it will be on the 6th of July. And it will be probably around this time in the afternoon. Thursday Island, there's also a wonderful resort there on Horn Island, who are very welcoming of the rally cruisers, and it's a great place to get together. We have an offshore cruising preparation course. I know we have a lot of very experienced cruisers on the rally this year, but we also have a few that this is very new to them all. So we are opening that up to those that are interested on the 10th of February, where they will have access straight away to the course. It is a self-paced online learning digital course with videos, resources, PDFs, and we're also offering, because it is the build up and we want you to be as prepared as possible, for you to have 4 one-on-one live Q&A sessions where you can, for up to an hour, where you can talk through any of your systems, anything that you need, any issues you think might come up, or just to ask any questions that you may have. And we've given that a very special price. It's 5 modules. Normally it runs over 4 weeks. So it's a price of $297 US, and it usually retails for over $595 US. So to register, if you're interested, on Preparing the Boat and Crew page in the app, under the Cruising Preparation course, which is the very first heading, if you click on the Click Here button, it will take you to the registration page. It is also on the special deals and merchandise page as well. So just something to help prepare you as much as possible for your adventure ahead. Cairns, there will be a muster and get together, and this will be at the end of May. Now, the Cairns Cruising Yacht Squadron is your host. They are not the Cairns Yacht Club, which is at Marlin Marina. They are in Portsmouth, a little bit further down the river. Now, Marlin Marina do a special deal for us normally, and I'm just waiting for confirmation on that, and we'll have that on the app as soon as that's available. But for those that prefer to, there is also anchoring in the just off Marlin Marina. There's an area there, and also down the river. Do be aware though, there is quite a bit of current and a bit of flow, And there are a lot of those bitey, snappy crocodiles, which would make great handbags, etc., that quite a few years ago escaped from one of the crocodile parks much further up the river. Cairns Cruising Yacht Squadron has a pontoon for bringing dinghies ashore as well, and it is not a difficult place to get to from the centre of town if you're in Marla Marina. We will be doing the distribution of the rally satchels and battle flags, as well as having the live webinar 8. We will do that live from Cairns Cruising Yacht Squadron, and we can also answer any other questions that may be there. We've also invited Raymond Lesmana and a representative of the Ministry of Tourism to come and join us on that day, and also some of the officials and regents from the areas that you will be visiting, so that they can talk to you and present to you a little bit about where it is that you're going to be going and what a wonderful place it will be for you to visit. I haven't had confirmation of that yet, but we're looking at that on the 31st of May. And then on the 1st of June is a chance to really get to know each other and have a little bit of a party at the Cairns Cruising Yacht Squadron. Now, Cairns is a really good place to provision. It's very easy to get around. There's supermarkets in town. There's a really good fresh fruit market, which is only 3 streets over from Marla Marina. You can refuel at Marla Marina, but if you're looking to take quite a bit, and there will not be a lot of opportunities to take a lot of fuel up at Thursday Island. 1, it is a lot more expensive, and 2, it is a very gnarly wharf and not an easy place to be. So topping up jerry cans might be the option there. Port Douglas, a little bit further north in Cairns, is another really good place to get fuel if you need to. So just a heads up on that for those that will be needing a few. And in some years we found that it's been a lot of motoring. So we'll just have to hope that this year's a little bit more sailing. There will also be, for those when you are at Thursday Island, there'll be an opportunity to have a get together at the Wangai Beach Hotel on Horn Island, which is a great place to get information, and they are a great support up there for anything you may need. Please try not to get anything sent to Thursday Island. It may or may not arrive. It may arrive after you leave, and it will be a lot more expensive. Some of the islanders will tell you that things come easily. Last year, there were boats that were still waiting for things to arrive that never arrived. So Cairns Cruising Yacht Squadron, if possible, use that as your base to get anything sent in before you head up further up the North Queensland coast. Things to consider while you're in Indonesia. So I'm bringing this up now because these are things that you might want to get a heads up from and think about if you haven't already. Nets, fads, those are fishery activation devices, and for many of them in Indonesia, they are just a bamboo or wooden structure with a few bits hanging off to attract the fish. There are also a lot of fishing boats in the Arafura Sea and all the way through Indonesia. Many of the local community, that is their way of making a living. So it is an issue. You do need to keep a really good lookout. Some of the nets will be held up by a plastic milk carton size container with a little bit of line on it. So sometimes they're not so easy to see. Some of them are big enough that some of the fads can be quite big and with families living on them. So there will be quite a contrast as far as that goes. We do recommend, if you can, that you try and fit a shaft or a prop cutter. It will minimize, hopefully, if you do get caught in a net, that it will either stop any damage that you'll have to your shaft or your prop, and hopefully stop any major damage happening. If you're worried, slow down, stop. You can't do any damage if your boat is not moving. When you leave to go from Thursday Island up to Tual, we will give you a heads up and some strategies for how to deal with the fishing fleets up in that area as well. But we will talk about that in the weather and the briefing later on. It is very hot in Indonesia. The eastern side and where you come in is not quite as bad. There is quite a bit more breeze in that area, but the closer you get up into the equator and up towards Malaysia and past Jakarta, up into the Kalimantan area, you will find that it is a lot more motoring as opposed to sailing. So we do recommend that you look at your shade options for the boat that will maybe be water catchers as well, that can cover a majority of the boat and allow ventilation in when you're at anchor, and also when you're getting further into the November time where you're going to have every day or most days where you're going to get heavy downpours of rain. And as I said, it's hot, so good fans, maybe have a look at your fan allocations within the boat. Can you add some more? Because it's a lot easier to do that in Australia or here in New Zealand, or even if you're up in Fiji or in New Caledonia, it's a lot easier to add it there than it is to add it once you get to Indonesia. Now, for the Australian boats on the fleet, this is for you, not for any of the overseas boats who have arrived in Australia. You will need to have Australian registration. That is done through AMSA. It is not a state registration, and I've already had 2 Australian boats that I have pushed through into AMSA to get their registration. Australian Border Force will not allow Australian boats offshore to leave the country without the proper registration. And it is a lengthy process, especially if you are maybe the 3rd, 4th, 5th or 6th owner of the boat. You need to prove all the ownership. So make sure you do that now. You will also, most of you probably have to export your boats, and we will talk about that at a later date as well. The charting in Indonesia is not accurate. You do need to keep a lookout. Satellite images are really, really good. And if you have looked at the Soggy Pause Compendium, and I'll put a link on that on the app as well. I've been talking with Sherry. She's happy to share everything that she has and puts in the compendium. She has access to a lot of the satellite photos and where you can download satellite images of the areas that you will be going. I highly recommend that you buy the Cruising Guide to Indonesia by Andy Scott. As I told you earlier on, 1,700 and something islands in Indonesia, so you cannot get everything in one cruising guide, but the Cruising Guide to Indonesia does cover most of the areas that you will be going, if not in detail, at least some of the main harbours and a few of the anchorages. For those that are going up to Raja Ampat, it has a really good section about Raja Ampat up in the book as well. Also be aware that it is volcanic in a lot of places in Indonesia, which means a lot of the anchorages are reasonably deep. So they can be anything from 20, 25 to 30 meters. They could be on a shelf where there is a shelf that comes out, which might be anything from 5 to 15 meters and then drop off. So having good amount of chain, if you haven't got it already, is a good idea to think about now, or thinking about how you're going to be able to anchor in those deep situations and keep enough distance between other boats, especially in some of the harbours where there seems to be an interesting current formation, and one of those is Ambon. Also, some of the bays and harbours do not have good holding at the bottom. It's a very mucky, sludgy mud. So we'll talk about in one of the other webinars about some ways to make sure that your anchoring is a little bit secure. Most of them I'm sure you've already heard about, but it's just another way to rethink again how you're going to deal with some situations. Okay, I think that's almost there. As I said, all the information that I've talked about today will be in the Sail to Indonesia Rally app. I'll keep it up to date as much as possible. And there will be a link to this recording on the app. It will probably be either late tomorrow afternoon or early on Thursday for those of you who are down here in the Southern Hemisphere. Now,
Questions?
any questions?
Can we give some details about the kids' boats that are registered?
Okay, at the moment, I have got 2 kids' boats registered, and I will get those out to the people that have got children on board. We've still got another 3 months, so I'm not sure how many more boats we'll be having, but we'll make sure that any kids' boat, we'll try and make sure that you're all connected. Last year, we had a separate WhatsApp group for the kids. So I'm happy to set that up if anyone would like to have that as well, so the kids can communicate with each other. That is not necessarily the adult one.
Okay, the next question is, this is from Miguel. I guess that any crew joining the rally not at the start will need details at visa submission time. So,
yes, if you can. One of the things with Indonesia is that it becomes very complicated to do crew list changes. So the most information, if we can have any crew that will be joining you in Indonesia, it is a good idea if you can have their crew, their passport scan and a passport style photo. Now, I've just heard from Raymond today that the passport style photos need to have a white background. So I will be checking through all the ones that have been sent through, and I'll email you individually if we need to redo them again. And they will need to be the same for the visa application as well. So the more information you have, they don't have to arrive with you, but if they're on the crew list, there's no issue.
okay, and the last one is the need for medical insurance.
Okay, for visas, there is a need for travel medical insurance. When you apply for your visa, they would like to see proof of that. You don't need to have it for the vessel declaration, but you may also be asked by quarantine or biosecurity on arrival in Tual, which is what they did last year. They asked to see the proof of your medical insurance. Now, I've heard from Topsail UK and Topsail Australia. The Yachtsman travel feature, let me try again. The Yachtsman's travel insurance, which is a health insurance, covers you for a whole year. It's not cheap, but it's also not expensive. Now, as far as I'm aware, for the Australians, your Medicare cards are fine. It's mainly for the Europeans, Americans, and us Kiwis down here who will need to show proof of some kind of health insurance, so that if you need to go to hospital, if you need to be medevaced out, then you can pay for it, that it's all organised. So it is a good thing to start looking at now.
Okay, and if you'd like to unmute yourselves,
you want to clear that?
We can take any other questions.
We'll just get rid of the keynote, right? And all the wonderful faces.
We're on again.
Okay, speak up.
Who we got? So, any questions?
It's not on, is it? I see in the chat, guys, somebody's put how many boats so far. How many have we got so far?
At the moment, we have a total of 34 boats, and 18 of those are on the early clearance, and the rest are on the planned clearance for the 15th of July at this stage. But I'm still getting expressions of interest, and what I find is normally March is when we get the most boats actually registering. The total of boats will be 25 at the very maximum for the early clearance, and 55 for the main group, which will be clearing in on the 15th to the 20th of July.
Okay, thank you.
when will the main group be leaving Thursday Island?
Okay, so it's about 650 nautical miles. So again, we don't tell you when to leave. It will depend on the weather and also the speed of your boat and how you sail. Last year, we had some boats that took them exactly 2.5 days to get to Tual, and some boats took 6 days. So what we do is we get you to organise with ABF in Thursday Island the best time that you're going to give yourself time to actually get from TI to Tual. And then the clearance dates are between the 15th and the 20th. So it gives you a little bit of leeway to leave on a better weather window if necessary. If the weather is absolutely horrible, then we will push them out a little bit because we want you to have as good a trip as possible. We don't want you to have to be smashing into bad weather.
I won't be coming
That right?
back. That sounds good. No, that's great. I won't be coming back to Australia until the 21st of May and back to my boat in Brisbane till then.
Yeah.
I'm going to obviously leave straight away, and I'm working on the boat to get it ready now.
Yeah.
If I don't make it to Thursday Island by June 10th, is that an issue?
It'll be, you've got all the way up to about July 6th, if you're in the main group.
I'll be
Because what we have found that the average boats take around about 4 to 5 days to do the trip. So if you're a few days later leaving, it's not a problem. But if you keep in touch with me and let me know how you're going, then I can let Raymond know on the other end. And if necessary, we can fudge as much as we can.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah.
It'd be great if you can get up to Cairns at least by the end of May. That would work out nicely with regards to the briefings, etc. in Cairns.
No worries. By the end of May.
And what's the situation if we can't? What's the situation if we can't get to Cairns by the end of May?
Hang on, let's just finish with Stuart first if we could. Sorry, Stuart, carry on.
Yep. No, that's fine. I'll do my utmost to get there. Yeah, it gives me a couple of weeks to get to Cairns from Brisbane. So as long as the weather's going the right direction, it shouldn't be too bad. Yeah.
Well, we've got our fingers crossed it'll all go there. Sorry, who was it that was talking before?
What if we can't get to Cairns by the 31st of May, because we're not actually leaving Brisbane till the 1st of June?
Okay, no, that's fine. So what will happen is that we will record the session that we do with the webinar, because that's a set webinar, and not everyone is going via Australia. Some boats are going via Port Moresby, some are going from New Caledonia, some are coming up over the top from Solomon Islands. If you are unable to make it by that time, not a problem. We will leave your satchel and your battle flags and anything else that you will need at Cairns Cruising Yacht Squadron for you to pick up.
Okay, thank you.
And just it's all about communication. It's letting me know how you're going, what's happening. Last year we had 3 boats that were delayed because they had boat issues, and we still got them in, and they caught up later with the fleet. So we will make something work for you. So we don't want you stressed. We want you to make this an enjoyable experience, but we all know that boats are not simple, and they have a tendency to do things that we don't want them to do when we think everything's going well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, hi Lynn, this is Jill, and thank you so much for all your responses to my crazy emails. I probably get the reward for frequent flyer, but I know you said this, but I want to confirm, if we want to do that early departure, it departs from Thursday Island, and again, I know it's weather dependent, but approximately June 25th is what you said. I thought I had heard 29th earlier, so I just want to make sure I understand that date.
Yeah, I put that we can bring. I just realized that, yes, because our original clearance was for the 5th of July. And when I looked at that date and spoke to Raymond, I thought it was just a little bit too long to have 5 days when there's a smaller group of you. And so the briefing date that I put on there was based on the 5th of July to arrive in Tual. And I've just realized that I've now said you're going, I want you to arrive on the 1st or the 3rd. So what we will do is bring that briefing date back to somewhere around about the 25th while you're in TI. So as I said, it's about a 4 for many of, especially some of your World Art boats that are a bit bigger. You're not going to take as long as, say, a smaller boat or some of the smaller catamarans that may not have the wind in the right direction for them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No worries.
One more question. Is there in Indonesia any biosecurity or food checking like in Australia or New Zealand?
They don't seem to have a big major issue with taking anything in all the years that we've been doing it. I know many boats have arrived with basil plants and tomato plants. As long as everything stays on board, you are there. Well, there is a possibility that they will ask you about alcohol, as we're aware it's a Muslim country. Please do not give any of the officials alcohol. It's, you know, many of you long-term cruisers will understand this, but try not to have all your alcohol in one place. And it will be, if you like your wines, it will be a lot cheaper to stock up in Australia or here in New Zealand than it will be in Indonesia. And the quality of it. Just be aware that if you're using cask wine, you've got heat, and also the motion of the boat often will change how the cask wine tastes. So just be aware of that as well when you're choosing what you put on board. You can buy beer all the way through Indonesia. I have not heard of anyone. In fact, last year, one of the things on the WhatsApp chat was where they found the most beer for the cheapest price, as well as the best places to eat. Spirits are a lot harder to get, but you can get them in some of the more touristy areas like Labuan Bajo, Bali, Lombok, Bilatong, places like that. So it really depends on what you stock up on. If you're like us, we like our soda stream, so we usually have mixers. Getting soda stream bottles could be a bit of a problem refilled up in Indonesia, because if they do have it, and I haven't heard of anyone saying they do, the fittings are going to be different, as some of the Americans have probably found. If you've got a soda stream on board, the New Zealand and the French fittings are all very different, and the Australian ones. So just be aware, getting your refill bottles may be an issue. And again, LPG bottles, getting them filled. Theoretically, it is illegal to fill any LPG bottle that is not an Indonesian bottle, but there are places that will do it for you through gravity feed. And some of the boats, some of you may already have this organised from some other places around the world, where you can do a gravity feed, and the parts that you need for that you can get quite easily in Indonesia as well. Just make sure you don't do it in the port, and make sure that you do it outside, away from anywhere that if something goes wrong, you're all going to be safe.
Gravity sounds like it might be happening.
Yeah, but there are places, Kumai, I know they filled in tanks, Lombok they filled tanks, New Zealand, Australian, American ones. So I haven't heard of a lot of people having major issues. If it can be as topped up in Australia before you leave, the better. If you're heading across the Indian Ocean, then probably Lombok you'll be able to, at somewhere in there. I know Madana Bay, I think, have taken them off to refill, and I think Marina del Rey have as well. And I'm not sure whether the World Arc boats that are rejoining, whether that's where you're joining up. I think it's in Marina del Rey, is it? Yeah. So whatever happens, no one has ever had a problem with being able to cook. And most people, it's so cheap eating out in Indonesia, and the food is wonderful. So a lot of people end up eating ashore or not using as much LPG as they thought they would. Johan, did you have a question? No? How are we going for time? Oh, we're doing really well. Any other questions?
Are there any security issues we should be aware of?
Not really. The only area that there is security issues is up on the northern side of Kalimantan, Borneo area, up towards near the Philippines. But I have not heard of any other issues. There are the occasional little bit of petty theft, but it's very rare for Indonesians to come on your boat. So there have been a few incidents around the place, but very, very few that I'm aware of. So general precautions: bring your dinghy up at night, leave the boat locked up when you go ashore for periods of time, all those kind of things, all those general rules.
Don't leave fishing gear out, or snorkels and masks and things out on the back deck. Put them away. If it's easy to get, they might just take advantage of it.
They prefer cash. Yeah, do they prefer cash or credit card in Indonesia? And should we get some Indonesian cash before we arrive?
That I always recommend. It doesn't matter where you go in the world, it is always a good idea to have local cash. If you can get hold of Indonesian rupiah and Travelex and Travelwise, I think in Australia are the different places. They tend to be in the big shopping malls. If you can pick it up, I also recommend that you have some places like Wise, TransferWise, Travelex, Westpac Australia have a travel card that you can put different currencies on, and you use it like you would an EFTPOS or a credit card. So that's a good way to do it if you can do it that way. There have been some incidents of credit card theft, in the fact that when you've used a credit card somewhere, then someone's making payments using your credit card. Now, that's not just Indonesia, that happens in Fiji, it's happened in different places around the world. So to keep your main credit card secure, it's always a good idea to have some that you use just when you're traveling, if you can.
Okay, thanks.
Fantastic, guys. We'll cover a lot more in detail in the later webinars and seminars. So get in touch with us by email if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask. Thank you for coming. Thank you for making the 10th anniversary of the Sail to Indonesia Rally such a success.
Very exciting.
Thank you.
I might be stirring place. Okay, thank you guys. And 27th of February is the next webinar. Recording will be up either late tomorrow or early the next day. So thank you very much for coming, and enjoy wherever you are.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye now.
Bye.